So in this segment, final part of the three-part series on Frost, which is on the Northern Ireland Protocol, we covered Frost's opinion on the origins of the protocol. We covered Frost's opinion on what went wrong with the protocol in his opinion, which some bits obviously wrong, and what should happen now in his opinion. So this should be quite a fun bit, just to see how badly or how rightly he actually goes for this one, because the EU officials actually gave him some credit for being honest. Which is fair because I think he was, for the most part, as honest as he could be anyways. So we'll go for what should happen now. Three-part series. If you haven't watched the first two, please watch them. And I'm going to piece this together into one really long video. It should be like an hour long or something. But anyways, here we are now. We are here. We are where we are. We have to face the fact that we are in a very serious situation. It's pretty clear, and serious commentators agree that the Belfast Agreement is on life support. I don't think it is. I think that... I actually, do you know what? I'm probably not the person to comment on that. It is difficult to see the next results of next week's elections doing much to help. So this is the day after. This is on the 6th. I'm recording this one. We still haven't got the results from the Northern Ireland Stormont election yet, so I'll keep an eye out for that. I'll cover that at some point, no worries. To state the obvious, this matters because, as I said at the start of these remarks, the purpose of the protocol was to protect and support the Good Friday Agreement. That was the understood objective of the negotiations on both sides. That is why it's explicit in the text, precisely to avoid any assumption that the later treaty supersedes the earlier one, but rather that one supports the other, which makes sense given how hard it was to get the Good Friday Agreement. The Northern Ireland Protocol does support it in the sense of it stops a hard border in the island of Ireland and puts it in the Irish Sea between GB and NI. But the main, I think in my opinion at least, the main things that are causing the violence in Northern Ireland is, of course, poverty. Northern Ireland is economically not that great. There aren't a lot of opportunities, and the Tories haven't done a lot to really help out. In fact, they've made it worse through their austerity policies, and Brexit as well has taken a lot of money out of Northern Ireland, which is a problem. Also the fact that the government keep lining up Unionists because they are looking, I think genuinely, some of the people in the cabinet at least, it feels like they want to use the societal aspect of the Northern Ireland Protocol to cause violence so they can trigger Article 16 and say our justification is the violence erupting in Northern Ireland because of the protocol. Because how it worked and how it feels to be working is cabinet officials or maybe even ministers are feeding information to the DUP about the protocol being suspended, the DUP then feeding it back to unionist communities, and the thing is, once those deadlines pass, those certain people in the unionist committees, the more radical people, they start causing violence, causing trouble, etc. He goes, at the moment the protocol is doing the reverse. The strain it is causing are actively damaging the Good Friday Agreement, but the simple fact is if the UK wanted to avoid the situation in Northern Ireland, they would just agree to dynamic alignment with the EU and it would get rid of the vast majority of problems. It is therefore surely obvious, indeed it is inescapable logical conclusion, the protocol can't operate as it stands. It has to be renegotiated or removed. That's simply not true. I don't think the protocol is causing some damage because people in Northern Ireland feel like they have been separated from GB, at least the more radical unionists have. But I think the best thing to do is to make the protocol work as best they can, to set up border facilities and to have as close alignment as we can with the EU in order to avoid as many border checks as possible. If you want to get goods from GB to NI as easily as possible, either try and rejoin the EU single market if it's possible and customs union for goods, or get dynamic alignment. It's the only way. Because that decision for now is with the government, because it won't be renegotiated or removed. The only way it'd be removed is via the consent mechanism, and based on the fact that there will be over 50% of MLAs in Stormont who either tolerate or are favourable of the Northern Ireland Protocol, they'll get consent. Unionism is of course fragmented and has its own political issues to work through. That is for unionist parties to sort out, which is true. You've got the the UUP and the DUP and probably one or two others. What worries me, though, is that some of the Unionists seem recently to have given into the temptation of accusing Her Majesty's government of bad faith, which is true, though. Absolutely, they should be accusing Her Majesty's government of bad faith. They've set crappy deadlines they could never have adhere to. They lied consistently to the DUP. They lied consistently to unionist communities about suspending the protocol, etc., and doing stuff. And they've created a situation where for these unionists in Northern Ireland, democracy doesn't seem to work. That's the situation that they've created. Allegedly, is showing no regard to the interests of Northern Ireland in agreeing to the protocol in the first place, which is absolutely 100% correct. If the Her Majesty's government really cared about unionists, I want anyone who's a unionist in Northern Ireland to listen to this carefully. If Her Majesty's government really cared about you, they would never have agreed to the Northern Ireland Protocol, because they knew, according to an ex-Stormont official, that this is the situation that would happen because of the Northern Ireland Protocol. So for anyone to argue that they didn't know what they voted for, simply not true. Because in most respects of national life, Northern Ireland is fully part of the UK and operates to UK rules, but the simple fact is unionists either haven't been told that or they don't accept that. Even in the narrower trade area, trade and services, 70% of the economy is governed by UK rules, not EU rules. The union exists and is meaningful, but the thing is, you keep riling up people in Northern Ireland because they don't see that. He says, I know the PM has to go through agonies over some of the tough decisions he has to take. If all he gets is criticism, then it makes it much harder to work up political support to deal with the consequences. Or if people keep saying mean things to him, he won't be able to do his job. He's not a 5-year-old. Grow up. Unionist criticism is best directed to the EU and the Commission, who puts in the position. No, big ban, yeah. Did the EU vote for Brexit? No. Did the EU vote for the Tories in 2019? No. Did the EU come up with the Northern Ireland Protocol? No. That was all you. Maybe not the referendum bit, but the 2019 election, that was you. Who lied to the Unionists in Northern Ireland? Was it the Commission or was it you? You're the ones who said there's no border in the Irish Sea. So do not try and blame the EU and the Commission. This is all on you. The only blame I put on the EU and the EU Commission is to come up with such a deal with a bunch of charlatans, honestly. They clearly did not realise who they were dealing with. Some Unionists also give the impression of believing there was a pre-protocol world where Northern Ireland was treated exactly the same as any other part of the UK, and where it's true that did exist under Theresa May. Theresa May's deal would have kept the entirety of the UK in the EU single market and customs union. He goes, a world where political nationalism does not exist, but we have seen political nationalism. We've seen English nationalism in the UK, where one of the DUP MPs actually said that the Tories are suffering from English nationalism. They're obsessed with the Red Wall. Is once again, I do not think it makes sense to advocate this vision where political nationalism doesn't exist. It's a bit strange. Nationalism is the reason we're in this mess in the first place. English nationalism. However, the protocol is amended or replaced, the successor arrangements need to respect the interests of nationalism and need to keep up north-south contacts as well as east-west ones. But it doesn't really deal with east-west relations, does it? In that sense, as I've often said, we will always need special arrangements with the EU to deal with Northern Ireland. That's what the Northern Ireland Protocol is. It's special arrangements between the two groups. Like, the EU knew that the Northern Ireland needed special arrangements, hence why the protocol exists. Come on, man. So yeah, we do live in a world where nationalism exists. Unionists should be listened to, yes, but so should Irish nationalists as well. They should be listened to as well. You can't argue like, oh, only one side needs to be listened to. It doesn't make sense. He goes, my second comment is on Ireland. Of course, I do not have any say or influence over how Ireland defines its interests, but because Irish people talk about British politics, Frost thinks it should work the other way around, which is fine. No one's saying you can't do anything. He goes, the reality is that at most of the crucial moments of the last 5 years, Ireland chose to throw its weight behind the EU interests and prioritise protecting the single market. No, what Ireland did was to protect people in Northern Ireland and to stop the troubles breaking out again. That's what they did. They did everything they could to stop a hard border in the island of Ireland. That's what they put their weight behind. Protecting the EU single market was important. That's probably secondary to a repeat of the Troubles. I don't understand how Frost can't understand that. And instead of working collaboratively with us to find solutions that can actually work in Northern Ireland. But the thing is, they did though. That's what the Northern Ireland Protocol was. Ireland, you admit in this article or in this speech, Ireland took the lead on certain aspects of Brexit, of the negotiations. So you admit that, parts of the protocol were dealt with specifically by Ireland, and now you're saying Ireland should have worked with the UK more when it works for a collaborative effort with the EU. Like, you deal with the EU, not just with Ireland. It doesn't make sense. That's like if the EU had some sort of spat with Scotland, they wouldn't go specifically to Scotland, they would go through Westminster. Come on, man. Because I understand why it's done that. If it's been cut off from the single market itself, which is true, Ireland benefits massively from the EU single market. He goes, I hope Ireland feels that it's got good value from the EU acting like this, which obviously it has done. Ireland's doing pretty good. He goes, though it doesn't look 100% clear to me that it has, and certainly its negotiating capital on the subject seems to be exhausted. I don't think it is. I genuinely don't. I think Ireland's still got a lot of capital left. They'll be the ones leading negotiations anyways, because they're the ones impacted most. He goes, we should ourselves, of course, continue to work constructively with Ireland bilaterally. Again, why are you trying to bypass the EU Commission here and the EU Parliament by trying to go directly with Ireland, a country that we colonised for hundreds of years? He goes, but I would like to see Ireland acting in the same spirit. They are acting in the same spirit. They are still talking to us. He goes, not disrupting the balance in Northern Ireland by constantly using a vague and destabilising language about tectonic shifts in the north, or by talking up a supposed all-island economy. Now, I have not heard many Irish politicians, right? I don't follow this closely enough, right? It's not my area of expertise. No, I don't have one, but I don't follow Irish politics a lot. As far as I know of, Irish politicians haven't really talked about a unified Ireland. They haven't. Sinn Féin are barely talking about a unified Ireland, Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland, because they know that that subject can be politically toxic to people. What they have done is focus on day-to-day issues like the cost of living crisis, inflation being around the 8-9% mark, going to hit the 10% mark at the end of the year, surging energy costs. Things that people genuinely care about. Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland haven't really talked about a united Ireland. I think Michelle O'Neill has been very quiet for a reason. It's because you want to get day-to-day issues. That's how you win. You can deal with this stuff later, just like the SNP have. The SNP have a mandate for an independence referendum in Scotland, but they haven't spoken about it because they want to get through these next hurdles. He goes, at a more prosaic level, to take one example, I would like to see Ireland operating. I'd like to see Ireland operating the common travel area, which Ireland do. The only ones stopping that are us, because we're saying that certain people will need passes and things like that. We're the ones who are trying to breach the common travel area. Because cooperation takes two, and sometimes it means taking tough decisions in the wider interest. I think you need to read this sentence again, Frost, and actually internalise it, because evidently you're asking Ireland to compromise here, but you yourself are not willing to compromise. He goes, we will need to see some sort of realism from the Irish government in the months to come. No. The realism aspect was the Northern Ireland Protocol. That's it. There's no other solution to this. You either put the border between GB and NI, you put the border in the island of Ireland, or you put the border around Ireland itself and take it out of the EU single market. That last one's never going to happen, because Ireland can stop that from happening. The second one never going to happen because of the Good Friday Agreement. The first one can happen because it has happened. That's it. It was the only viable one at the time, and it's still the only viable one now. He goes, now looking forward, I have 4 comments about the current situation. He goes, first, we have surely learned from the last few years that we cannot rely on the help of EU in Northern Ireland. It's not the case. Sefcovic has done extensive work trying to reduce the tariffs in Northern Ireland. Rubbish, absolute rubbish, the first point. Not tariffs, sorry, trying to resolve the issues in Northern Ireland. In fact, they have done more, I think, to lessen the burden of the protocol and talk to businesses and people in Northern Ireland than the British government have, because the British government, all they understand is Article 16, and even then, their interpretation of Article 16 is wrong. We've gone through that already. Because I do not think they are operating in bad faith. I think you are operating in bad faith, though. I do not believe they see their own interests as coming first, reasonably enough. What? He's saying the EU says he says I do believe they see their own interests as coming first. Well, that's reasonably enough, as he admits. The EU want to protect their single market. Why have high standards if you're going to leave gaps in it? Because we should do the same, and we have every right to do so. And we are the government for the whole of the UK, including Northern Ireland. Except you are the ones who separated Northern Ireland out from the rest of the UK. That was you. You did that. So you can't come back around and say, oh, we really love you, Northern Ireland, we're always there for you, we always care for you, and I miss you, and I need you. You can't do that, bruv. You can't do that. Because you're talking rubbish. You were the one who set up the Northern Ireland Protocol. You see how frustrated I get with these people. The second, the international context has hugely changed, has it? Because the UK and the EU are working together closely to help Ukraine behind its common objectives, which is fine. That's not a hard one to do, though, because our relationship with Poland and the Baltics and other Central Europeans have become a hugely important element in managing the ongoing crisis. Because it may not be that some member states who in the past would have been content to tuck in behind a commission, France, Germany access, in imposing trade sanctions on the UK. But the thing is, though, what he forgets is if they want to suspend the trade and cooperation agreement, they can do so. It won't be about putting these won't be sanctions. These will be WTO tariffs. They don't have to put sanctions on us, because he's right. These other countries in Central Europe or whoever, Poland for example, they can stop sanctions being put on us. But I think if the TCA were to be suspended, I don't think there's much they can do. It depends on how the TCA will be suspended. Does that vote go to the EU Parliament? Does it go through the Commission? I'm not 100% sure. It could go to court, for example. The judges could bypass all of those, go to court, and they could be the ones to deal with it. So this argument here about sanctions, it's an okay argument, but the problem is they don't have to go to sanctions. They can just go to tariffs. That would destroy our exports. Imports will be fine because we don't check anything anyways, but our exports will be absolutely crippled, and exports to Northern Ireland will be dead because there will be tariffs imposed on them, or the EU would expect tariffs to be imposed. Because third, it remains surprising to me that the EU will not renegotiate the protocol. I mean, have you read the command paper? Oh wait, you wrote it, didn't you? It's a joke. Their professed view that the protocol is the only way to protect the Belfast Agreement would be self-evidently incorrect. Even if the protocol were not so obviously now undermining the agreement, negotiations will still be the best way forward. We have put forward reasonable and workable compromise proposals and a full legal text. Sorry if you can hear my mum in the background. What he's talking about is the command paper, which is a joke. Of course, the EU can, if they wish, say we have what we have we hold, which is true because it's signed, it's implemented, it's in international law. Because even though now the protocol is not being fully implemented, but then the EU can try and push us to fully implement them. It's up to them. But it's not obvious whether it's in the interest to be significantly responsible for the destruction of the Good Friday Agreement. I don't think the protocol will be the thing that destroys the Good Friday Agreement. It will be the Unionists who destroy it in the end. Because unless, of course, they define their interests differently as maintaining leverage of the UK, causing us political difficulties and creating incentives to keep us closely aligned with the EU. So again, he keeps saying, I don't accuse the EU of acting in bad faith, but he's still accusing them of acting in bad faith by using these sorts of arguments, saying the EU put their single market above the Good Friday Agreement, for example, because he's saying, if they don't change the protocol, then the Good Friday Agreement's in jeopardy. But it won't be the EU that have caused this. It would be the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is Brexit, really, and the Unionists. He goes, that would explain their behaviour. There is a reason why we cannot wait forever in the hopes of improving the protocol by consent. But surely consent is the best way to do this. And obviously the Americans, with President Joe Biden, who very much sees himself, I think, as an Irish American, has kept a very close eye on this. And yet he's not blaming the EU, he's blaming us. Because fourth and finally, if the EU is not willing to work with us to improve the protocol, then Her Majesty's government has no choice but to act unilaterally. Personally, I've never had any difficulty with doing so at the right moment, but we will be in breach of international law. We will face potential sanctions. We will face definite tariffs if we do this. One option would be to act in a fairly limited way, they love using that phrase, to remove current pressure points, first by Article 16, perhaps more than once as difficulties arise, and to create new facts on the ground. That's a bit of a weird way to phrase it. But the simple fact is, the government needs to be very open about which bits are we struggling with. That's the problem. He goes, but also by making clear that it was the UK's intention to secure a negative consent vote in 2024. So the UK, this is why they're talking more about Article 16, right? Because chances are the MLAs won't vote against the protocol in 2024. That's what's clear and green here. It's quite funny, isn't it? He goes, but also making clear that it was the UK's intention to secure a negative vote. So that's why I think the DUP have been piping up more this year, is because they realise they're not going to win in Stormont anymore. They're not going to have the votes necessary to get rid of the protocol in 2024. That's why the government have been talking about this so much. He goes, it may be that situation cannot sustain the current tensions over such a long period. If that is the Her Majesty's government judgment, then I think it should be entirely reasonable for the government to act unilaterally to override key elements of the protocol and domestic law, which the government have backed off from doing. I'll talk about that at some point. I've got a lot of topics to talk about. But the simple fact is, now that, democracy won't stop it, i.e. the MLAs in Stormont, who, if the people in Northern Ireland were genuinely against the protocol, they would be voting for anti-unionist parties, not Sinn Féin. Because that democracy doesn't work, we're going to get rid of it. We don't care. if how you vote. We do what we want. It's Britannia waves the rules, isn't it? He goes, I personally do not believe that acting against the protocol should or need raise any issues of wider UK compliance with international law. But the thing is, if we suspend parts of the protocol, we are in breach of international law. So this argument, we'll still be good people, right? He goes, our wider issues, our track record speaks for itself. What, like the illegal war in Iraq and Afghanistan? Does that speak for itself? Even the Bosnia intervention, which, according to some people, I think from what I've read, was the right thing to do. The UN didn't back it. I think we're even in breach of international law back then. Our record on human rights and international law is not very good for us. It's not good at all. If you looked at the people we sell weapons to, big boy. He goes, the UK is one of the most outspoken advocates of an international system based on agreed rules, but we break the rules. That's the key problem. He goes, it's worth remembering former Brexit Minister Stephen Barclay in Parliament on March 2019 relaying the government's legal view that if the objectives of the protocol were no longer being proportionately served by its provisions, because, for example, it was no longer protecting the Good Friday Agreement in all its dimensions, it could be argued that there had been an unforeseen and fundamental change of circumstances affecting the essential basis of the treaty of which the UK consent had been given. So he's talking about here that if the Northern Ireland Protocol is damaging the Good Friday Agreement and it's not protecting the Good Friday Agreement, the protocol could be suspended. That was the then government's legal view under Theresa May with Stephen Barclay. Article 62 of the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties permits the termination of such a treaty in these circumstances. And again, if you can argue this successfully, then you should be happy for it to go to court. Then you're always an EU-biased court, but there are times where the courts have voted against the Commission. We saw it in the case where the UK owes a lot of money in terms of customs duties and VAT, etc. Whilst we are still members of the EU, the courts ruled against the Commission's calculation of the fees and said, come back with something concrete. So we have seen that happen, where the Commission can get struck down by the courts. That was not the strongest example I cited, but it was one example. In any case, it is obvious that the protocol is different. There is almost no other international treaty like the withdrawal agreement and the protocol because Brexit was such a unique thing. The UK was not a fully sovereign power when it negotiated. That's not true. If we weren't a fully sovereign power, how did we manage to leave the EU and negotiate then? It doesn't make sense. Because the detail of the protocol's provisions was essentially imposed under duress because we had no walk-away option. That's not true either, though. The argument that we couldn't go to no deal, that was the will of Parliament. Parliament was voted in by the people. So again, these arguments, they're rubbish. And it makes huge intrusions on UK domestic policy. Then why did you agree to it? Why did you come up with it? It doesn't make sense. Moreover, the protocol is not a permanent feature on our relationship, which is true. That's why the consent mechanism exists. And it's highly unusual in an international treaty. It can be voted out of existence by a legislature in one of the parties because it directly impacts Northern Ireland. So Stormont, which has powers over Northern Ireland, can decide whether it should stay or go. What happens then, I am not sure about, but it's up to the people in Northern Ireland to figure that out, or figure out if they want to keep it or not. That's the top and bottom of it. He goes, for these reasons, if Her Majesty's government has to act against it, it would be entirely wrong and unwarranted to draw any wider conclusions about our attitudes of international law. I mean, that's not true either. If you break international law, you break international law. It doesn't matter about the context that you broke it in. The government will need to rally its supporters in Parliament. I mean, they're looking very gone at this point. Because I hope that parliamentarians in our party, but also in the Labour opposition, will be ready to look through the inevitable sound and fury and keep in mind the importance of protecting the union on which this United Kingdom depends on, which is ironic because people, a certain MP, I can't remember his name, I covered him probably last month, said Labour are actually better for Northern Ireland than the Tories are. He goes, the best of both our major political parties have always stood for this, except you haven't though. The best of both our major political parties, clearly you are not the best of them, are you? This current crop of Tories are not the best for the UK because the simple fact is you guys are the ones who voted to get rid of Northern Ireland from the UK's kind of single market for goods. That was on you guys. You voted for this. You negotiated this for us. Be real. Be honest with the people for once. Maybe not now. Maybe in the future he will be. Because let me conclude, our relationship with the EU cannot endlessly be bound up with Northern Ireland, but the thing is, it will be for a while until you guys finally settle on the protocol. Because the inability to reach a durable protocol settlement means that a huge, indeed, and unbearable amount of weight has been put on Northern Ireland's fragile politics as a result. But that's a weight that you placed on it, Frost. It says it's time to put our own interests first, the integrity of the UK first, the British people first. I hope the government will do so. But the thing is it in the interests of the people for the UK to have the TCA suspended and for us to face other potential sanctions, or at least tariffs from not just the EU but also from other countries, like the US, for example? We will be in breach of international law, and given the massive international effort it took to get the Northern Ireland Protocol, the Good Friday Agreement, do you want to do this? We will be a rogue state if we do this. Because I don't know what happens. If we scrap the Northern Ireland Protocol, what happens then? Where does that trade border go? There is no good answer after that, at least in my opinion. But anyways, that concludes our 3-part series on Frost. I think it must have gone for, yes, easily over an hour. There is some good bits in here. There are bits where he's honest. Point being is that he's arguing that they agreed to the Northern Ireland Protocol under duress, but we know that's simply not the case. But, the whole point was get Brexit done, renegotiate the protocol afterwards. That's what the whole idea was. Once we leave the EU, we can deal with everything else later, and that's simply not going to happen because the EU aren't going to buckle on this. It's an international agreement. We're acting like we're dealing with some weak country that we can do anything to. The EU are very powerful. I'm trying to say individual EU states are very powerful. They're not going to be bullied by us. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. This concludes our 3-part series. Very long and painful. I think I lost my brain halfway through it. But this man is very annoying to deal with. He's very slimy. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.